Hello everybody, my name's Miriam Divine and welcome to my channel. This is the first in the series about spiritual development and working, as well as, we'll do a little tarot reading and stuff in there as well. Today we're going to work on chakras, and if you haven't guessed, I'm a transgendered witch, and you can see we're shooting from my fabulous RV. The bed and breakfast I bought, it's being renovated, the owner suite is being renovated, so I'm in temporary housing and I didn't feel like paying for endless hotel rooms and stuff. So we're in this 1992 Winnebago Elante Glamper, and I won't do the tour this time just because I don't feel like carrying around cameras. However, I've been doing energy work, spiritual practices since I was like a wee little kid, since like 9 or younger, when I first found martial arts and stuff. And I kind of grew from there. I did a lot of journey work, like shamanic journey type stuff, though we didn't call it shamanic journey back then. I did a lot of meditation, aura seeing, energy work, dealing with shadows and things like that. However, as I grew up and got older, about 8 years ago, I started really working with my witchy self, and that's when I kind of discovered that I was a witch. Now we're going to go ahead and start with our tarot reading. And let me get it set up here. And then we're going to jump into our spiritual lessons. We're going to talk about chakras today, because chakras are kind of like a real basic, and we'll go through that. Also, as you can hear, my voice is a little scratchy because I'm getting over a cold and a sore throat. So for our tarot work, so let's just look and see what we have here. And I'll go through each card. I kind of already did this once, but had a my hair kind of started to get an emergency. So we have the reverse chariot, which is almost like a slow down, right? We have this 4 of Pentacles, which is really hold on to something, or you're really holding on. We have the 9 of Swords coming out in reverse, which is, the 9 of Swords upright is the shadowy type of really something in your field, really heavy. This is kind of like working through it and letting it go. And the King of Swords. Then we have some cards here. Now these are my old Light Seers deck. That's it's been through a lot, as you can see. And then we're going to work with our lunar cards down here. So the first bit of reading we got is this working with your shadows, right? It's this not real heavy work, because if you ever done a lot of heavy work and it's not racing towards them like a mad maniac, it's slowing down, taking time, and your shadows, you're never going to let them go. Your traumas, whatever you're holding inside, that's what your shadows are. You don't let them go, and you don't pack them in and hold them down and stuff them inside. You need to go into them and really give them love, work with them, and kind of own them. That's really what the King of Swords is saying. It's saying own them, right? And this is working through them, because it's already over, right? If it was upright, they're right there at your door. This is you working through them. And of course we got Freya, which comes in with this message of love, right? If you really are felt drawn to work with, or drawn to work with Freya this month, or this lunar cycle, I kind of try to do things by lunar cycles, really work with her, and she will be in your periphery coming up here, from now until our next first quarter, which she'll be kind of there lingering if you wish to work with her. And we do have the first quarter here, which is time to make some commitments. It's time to, journal. A lot of journaling is good for shadow work too. So that's what we kind of got for our reading today, is inner shadow work, which we'll try getting into that more with shamanic journeys and stuff coming up in some future, I don't know what to call them anymore, workshops, lessons, whatever you want to call these things. Basically just information is what I kind of like to see them as. And as I said, today we're going to work on our chakra work. So as a basic, and shadow work really does have a lot to do with your chakras, and it might not seem like it. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put these cards aside here, and we'll work on our trusty chakra. And I have this beautiful paper right here that we're going to do. And I'm going to push it off to the side. I like angles here. And so I have a nice little pen here, a nice blue pen. And I'm going to rearrange just a tad so I can get in here and really work with things. So, oh my gosh. Excuse me. Wow, you know. So, sorry about that. C-H-A-R-K-A. So, yeah, don't, I'm sorry about my handwriting. It's messy, right? So, we got chakras here. And what are chakras? The chakras are, you know, there's a bunch of different stuff, but they're basically a way of explaining different energy spots inside of your body. And there's the micro ones, which are just these main few. They're the ones that usually everybody sees. You see that cool little person sitting on the lotus flower, and they got all the, you know, energy points going up and down their body. That's the little micro ones. However, they go much deeper. I think there's like 128 different ones, because each one can be broken down into varying different systems throughout your hands and all that kind of stuff. All over the place, right? However, we're only going to talk about the main ones. Otherwise, we'll be here for like hours and hours and hours. And so, boy, we kind of blurred out there, didn't it? Okay. So we probably have to cut some of this. So we're going to talk about our chakra system. And the easiest way, you know, is to look at them in the human body. And it's just another system, like your respiratory system or your nervous system or your, I don't know, lymphatic system. I don't know. There's just different. And the chakras kind of correspond to different areas in your body, but don't necessarily flow with each organ in particular. Yes, they touch different organs, but it's different than, say, your nervous system, which also is a way of feeling and moving energy, but it's different from the chakras. So we got this little guy here, this tall little guy or girl, it doesn't really matter, right? And there's several chakras inside of the body, and it's kind of easiest to look at this one right here. This is our solar plexus chakra. Let's see if I can write it here. S-O-L-O, solar P-L-E-X. It's kind of, you know, I'm going to put a little thing here. This is your solar plexus chakra. And that's the center of our body. It's a very focused chakra. And then above that we have our heart, right? H-E-A-R-T, our heart chakra. And this one's a little bit more expansive than the solar plexus one. And it's more designed for reception, right? You receive more love and stuff into your heart. Can it go the reverse direction? Sure, you can give love through your heart. But the solar plexus just naturally is easier to push and move stuff versus receive it. They all can receive and push. It's kind of, you know, I kind of like, you know, a lot of times if you read ancient, you know, books, they use a lot of times they use masculine, feminine, but that's not necessarily saying that anything about masculine or femininity. It is about whether it is, you know, receptive or pushing or giving, right? And so this focal point of your solar plexus is more giving, where your heart is more receptive, right? Let's put an R and a G here versus the whole masculine feminine thing, which kind of annoys me. And then right above that we have our throat, R-O-A-T, I think. You guys can correct me in the comments if I can't spell. But that one's right here. And that one's also a more giving one. And then, of course, we have, and we already got the head drawn here, kind of in this expansive, you know, for the third eye. Let's draw a little eyeball in here. Let's see if I can draw an eye. Yeah, the eye of Sauron, right? And this is the magical third eye everybody talks about, opening and stuff. And it's actually more of a receptive one, right? And then, of course, we have the crown right here. And then, of course, there's another one above that. And then, actually, it goes back in another one, a little one here, and then another one above that, and then a little one here, etc. As they go up much higher outside of the body. And that's why you see a lot of times it's drawn like an explosion coming out of your head, right? Because you have your crown right up in there. Let me draw a little arrow in there. You have your crown right up in there, and then it kind of radiates out. And a lot of times you'll see like the, I don't know, like the Hindu and the Shia, I think, who wear the turbans and stuff. Anyway, they're trying to protect this crown from receiving stuff and pushing out and losing a lot of energy. It's more for losing stuff out of that energy. And a lot of times the third eye, people like try to protect it, right? You know, the whole third eye concept. And then we go down and opens back up into another receiving area. And this I kind of like to draw little waves in here. This is your sacral, right? Actually, I guess the sacral kind of goes all the way to my body's really long, right? But the sacral is another receptive area. And this is a very, you know, each of these areas, of course, correspond to more, because they're all energy spots. And they correspond to different energies. And we'll get into the colors and stuff that go with them just a little bit and touch them in this video. But the sacral is this kind of like very water energy. And it almost holds like a very vast amount of energy. R-A-L. That holds a very vast amount of energy. And probably you can hold most energy in your sacral. I'm touching my stomach, but yes. It's in your tummy from your solar plexus down to your... And they don't really talk about this in a lot of traditions. Or they try to skip it, which I don't know why. But your sex organs, and a lot of times they put that with the sacral, which it's just another point. It's just another focal point, which is actually a giving spot, right? And that's really obvious. That's probably why they get, you know, masculine, feminine out of. Guys like to give with that spot. Now, women go the reverse direction as receiving from that spot, but it almost instantly goes into their sacral or into their root, right? Which kind of, it extends down beyond your legs, down into the earth, right? Because here's the ground, and here's like the earth down here. And this is your roots. And this is very receiving. And it's very much connected into the earth. And that's why you get a lot of this grounding. I know our guy kind of got evaporated into the picture here. And then, of course, it goes down through, this is the magma. You can actually go down, and then it goes down into where the soul of the earth is. Nice little spot. And we'll talk about moving your attention into these different energy places. And this is about the size of a football. I can write that down there. Just in case you ever find yourself down there. It's way down at the center, this really concentrated spot. It's a very giving spot. And of course, the magma is a very receptive spot, and etc. as we go up. And this is the same way as we get above. And like I said, this stuff above and below is very much deeper, and probably more than what we're going to do for this video. But we get into this opening. This is kind of like the two realms. You got the Imperium realm. I can't spell it. Imperial. But the Imperium realm, which is basically heaven. And then, of course, you have Tartarus, or what a lot of times in Christianity they refer to as hell. I'm not going to write that on here. But I review them as the either heavens or Imperium realm. And the Imperium kind of combines them all. So it's kind of heaven and Tartarus, right? And then you have, I'm not even sure what to call this switch point. And then you have this vast void way up there. And then you got this movement into above that, which we can't even see up here, but it is the, we'll draw it on my board here, but you have the God consciousness, which is a receptive area, which is kind of almost connected through some of these, receiving, giving area, but it's more receptive right now. I think the God consciousness kind of shifted over time to where it was in this giving zone to more receptive zone. So, but we're not going to, like I said, we'll talk about that as we get further down into our deeper dive studies into these things. So, each one of these chakras inside of the human body here has, where's the actual draw? He will draw, a line here for where the break point is of the human body. And we got the break point down here for the human body. Okay, so each of these are energy centers inside of our body, and each has a different color, a different frequency, and all of that within inside of our body. Like the down here is very red in color, and has a very low frequency. The frequencies go up as we go up. I won't go over as we go up. I think this is like 174, and then we get up into, we start getting up into the 221 in here in our sex organs, and then we move up into the 286, and then it eventually gets into the 400s. I'm starting to lose my numbers here. And eventually up towards we're in the crown, we're at the like 900 zone. And we could certainly you can find all that information online. Everyone's slightly different, so I might be a 174 hertz down here, but you might be a 173 or something. And if you look, there's a magic balance hertz, which kind of balances the whole body. Just saying, it's in here in our sacral somewhere, which balances a lot of things. Now, we have red in our roots. This area is generally orange. It's almost like the colors of the rainbow working up. I'll tell you this, it's not in a nice, neat little box, right? It's very... If it's neat in the box, it's probably you're missing something, because a lot of energy work, like we talked about our shadows and stuff, it's not a neat, like 1 + 1 = 2 kind of logic. It's a fuzzy kind of feel. And that's why everyone's different. My body is definitely different than your body, etc. And everyone across the world's bodies are different, though we have a similar human form, which is why we have similar chakras. Like, you look at the chakras on the cat, they're going to be way different than the chakras on a human. But they're still there. They still have chakras. Everything, a tree has a chakra system, but it is different than ours. But we're working with human chakras right now. And then we have the solar plexus, which is generally yellow, right? And then we have the heart, which is kind of green. And we have the throat, we'll kind of skip that. And then we have up here in the third eye, and a lot of people like to say it's kind of like this, almost like violet or purpley. I guess I'll write that up here. It's kind of that, but it's in that kind of violet purple. And it's just, it kind of follows a rainbow, kind of. When you start getting above and below, like down here, the magma actually has a very good representation of what it is down here, in this very heavy, dark, bright red, and stuff like that. So there's also, besides just the colors, which are, what's a color? Just a frequency of light that you see with your eyes reflecting back in. The same with the sounds, it's just a frequency. Energy is just a frequency of whatever, right? And so, and this probably won't come into play unless you're a martial artist or something, but there's different animals in correspondence, and with the earth that goes with everyone. Red is a square. It's very heavy, very squarish. I used to always refer to it as a martial art technique. When you do an earth technique, it's very drop, over and drop down. It's a very square type of technique. And this sacral is almost like a whirlpool sucking down into it. So if you're doing a lot of, movements like this, this is if, you're working your chakras. You can do a very Buddhist meditation. I'm going to sit here and meditate type of work and move your feelings into your chakras and move the energy. Or you could do more of a Tai Chi or movement based. Well, these are the different movements for your Tai Chi, or the base of those movements for working in specific chakras. And they'll do a lot of flow in Tai Chi with the ball, which, look where I'm doing my flow, right? It's right at my solar plexus. And as you see, I'm not really touching like this area. Your solar plexus, which a lot of martial arts do, is very linear, back and forth, push, pull, punch, kick, all that kind of stuff. It's probably why there's more guys like punching people and kicking people. And our heart, of course, is more of this windy kind of thing, right? It's kind of like a whirlwind. If you've ever really worked with it, it's kind of a little bit more sporadic, and that actually kind of leaks up into our throat chakra. A little bit more windy, like you're speaking, like the wind getting pushed out, right? This giving of the wind, or giving of our throat. Now, like I said earlier, I'm touching up because of the throat right here, right? Oh my God. The stupid hair sometimes. Sometimes I remember days when I had short hair and much nicer. A lot of times versus longer hair. But I like my long hair. But it kind of gets in, if you don't tie it back and go crazy with it, it gets all over the place. But anyway, kind of like, this windy, voidy kind of thing, right? And, a lot of times they talk about your hair is the longer your hair, You know, in the Bible they talk about Samson and Delilah and cutting of his hair. They do the same if you look into, like, in Hinduism or whatever. They have very long hair up under that turban because hair is a sign of spiritual growth and stuff like that. Even though short hair is very convenient. But now we do have this voidy third eye area, and that area is a very it's very receptive. It's very absorption. Your third eye is where you'll start feeling or seeing or hearing. It's really connected to a lot of the senses. It's that gland, right? Like, it's about the size of a peanut or walnut, you know, that a lot of people, they talk about inside. When it's calcified a lot of times, over time, it gets like, almost like I said, it gets calcified, it gets closed up. And when you do your third eye opening, you know, a lot of times they'll do an actual physical rub on the here, but actually the third eye is spiral like this, but this makes like a gear. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. You decalcify your third eye by moving energy around inside of it, and eventually it decalcifies and pulses, right? And actually there's a group of monks that do the same thing with their crown chakra, like little babies. They got that really soft top of their head where it's opened because their crown's very open. Well, over time it calcifies, the skull closes up and calcifies, and there's monks and stuff that work on reopening that area. And so when they actually breathe through their skull, it's called skull breathing, their skulls are actually been documented to move opened and closed as they breathe, which, I don't know. I have not done that practice. So, but I have done third eye work and all that kind of stuff, and opening the crown and things versus, you know, closing them up. Like I said, you can give and receive through any of these. They just naturally give and receive. You know, and of course the crown, we won't get into the shapes and frequencies above and below. You can actually explore some of those on your own. There's some beautiful channels out there, like a Meditative Mind or something, that has the different frequencies that are very similar, and you can, you know, listen to frequency or play, like, a lot of times you'll listen to these meditation songs and stuff, or meditation music, and you can hear, if you get the right things, you'll hear they kind of move through the lower frequencies up because it's trying to expand and open up your energy to your third eye. Or you can get a lot of them that will really bass, will move down into your either sacral, which a lot of times they will stick with that 200 something and stick in your sacral, or they'll push down a little bit lower into some of these really deep ones. So, and the reason we talk about colors with them, because there is a color associated with them. If you practice aura seeing, and we'll do that too eventually, but not in this video, but you practice aura seeing, you will see the different major centers on people, or the major vibe or emotion that goes with them. There's actually emotions, which is a frequency as well, that goes with each and every one of these, right? Of course, the heart is really easy because throughout all of culture is love, right? That's a really easy one. But yellow is very positive, right? It's very easy. Now, when we start getting down into the sacral, because a lot of people connect these, this is almost like a very sexy, you know. A best example of sexy movement is Jessica Rabbit from the old cartoon. Very sexy. That flipping of the hips. And I used to, you know, talk about different walking, and maybe we'll do that when I do some of my outside videos, of the different walks for the different chakras to open them up. Because you can actually walk in a very earthy walk. If you watch a lot of martial artists, or, you know, people who have ninjas, ninjutsu, I guess. Nobody says we're ninjas anymore unless you're like a kid. But if you practice ninjutsu or jujitsu or something, you'll see this very low-centered walk as they walk, almost like their heads don't bob up and down, but they have this really heavy kind of movement, kind of like a cat, almost like you got this heavy, very earthy walk. Well, there are certain walks that go with each and every single one of our chakras. And pardon me for half a second, I'm going to get up and get myself some water, because, oh my God, I am like dying. Now, I try not to cut my videos, so I now have to get out a bottle of water, which, one of the beautiful things about my bed and breakfast is that everything here is natural spring water, you know, so, and it like comes out better quality than bottled water here at the property. So that's really one of the amazing things of this, my new bed and breakfast, is it's like got super water. You know, where you get city water, you get all those chemicals and stuff. And you see, I'm not perfect, you know. Here I got my old ratty cup that I'm using. It just is what it is, you know. So, and we'll get into different plants and stuff like that that also work with chakras. This topic is like vast, and we've probably already gone well over my 20 minutes of vastness of this topic already, and we barely scratched the surface. So, let's see. Oh, we were talking about movements, right? Jessica Rabbit, you know, very heavy like a bear or something down in your earth. You get up into your yellow. It's a very direct walk, very fast. If you actually stand and lean just a little bit forward, almost like you're falling into it, and go directly straight line, that is like the movement of your solar plexus. And the reason we didn't, you know, this kind of connects in with your sexy walk. There's a little bit more to it when you start getting into your sex organ walk, but we'll save that for a more risque thing. And then heart, because it's very kind of scattered, the movement is very kind of scattered. You'll probably kind of just bebop and bobble around. You see those people that are kind of just floating around, and at a party they're kind of drifting from here to here and talking to everybody, and they're very loving and open and stuff. They're very heart opened, right? It's one of those things. And of course, when you get up into your third eye, these are kind of like very like scientific, spacey people. They'll almost be like kind of half looking up as they're kind of just drifting around and walking. And they're also very kind of scattered as well, because they're not paying attention to anything. They're kind of just lost in something, right? And that's also a movement. And so, and we were motions. Oh yeah, motions. Let's see. Earth is a very heavy type of feel. It's a very rooted or grounded emotion. And that's why they do a lot of grounding work. But they work into the ground. You're actually part of the earth. That's why your root doesn't have a point at the bottom where your bubbling wells are on the bottom of your feet. They're actually, you exist inside of the earth a little bit. And so when you start disconnecting from that earth, you start disconnecting and having a few problems because you're too disconnected. So it's really good to get out in the dirt and walk around barefoot. I know sometimes you can't because it's too cold or whatever. You know, get some potted plants, put them around. Anything else we need to really touch on for chakra work here as a very entry basic level? And of course, like I said, like each of these can be broken up into, you know, this is what we got: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? I like to view 8. A lot of times in traditional stuff they talk about only 7 because they combine the sex organs. But the reason I do this is that, you know, I said everything's not in a neat little box, but if you really look at this, you know, as a spiral going up and down through the body. Now my lines aren't lining up perfectly, but what does this look like? This looks like very much like a DNA strand, right? And a DNA strand doesn't cross, it spins and spirals, and it's the exact same thing you do when you are moving your energy up through the body. It moves in a spiral up, or a spiral up depending on what type of energy practice you're doing. And we'll actually get into that when we start talking about like Kundalini work and stuff like that. But your chakras, and I guess we'll talk about Kundalini, I just mentioned that, can be in balance and out of balance. And they can be altogether in balance or altogether out of balance as in a whole, because they're a whole system. Basically, you're one giant chakra. But this is just broken up into 8 different chakras. Or you can break it up into the 128 of them, I believe, which are all individual little pieces. Like, you know, your eye got a different chakra system inside of the eye, which you can balance and work with if you want to. But the major ones, you want to keep these in balance. Otherwise, you start having health problems. These are not just connected to your energy, so it's not separate. It's not like saying, hey, let's take all the nerves out of your body and you're going to be perfectly fine. You're going to have issues if you're losing one of your systems in your body. The same with your chakras. If they're out of alignment, either way over too much energy, right, because they're an energy form, way too much energy, you'll start to burn out. You know, you see this a lot of times with like bodybuilders and stuff. When they're young, they're all real muscle bound and they're, you know, really good. But as they get older, they start finding, especially if you're using like chemical additives like steroids and stuff, their organs will start to burn out and they'll have issues inside of like their muscle systems and whatever for that type of thing. If it's out of balance, if it's too much. And then their bodies start to have problems and other health issues. The same goes if it's too little, right? If you diminish your energy, and I look at this too much and too little as either aggravated energy or calm energy as too much and too little. It's not like having, like, that's why the energy, it's more energy when it's more aggravated, right? You heat up the air inside of a balloon, the balloon expands, right? You take it away, the balloon shrinks. Same concept with this aggravated and this, you know, calm energy. Well, if it gets too calm, what happens when all the energy goes away and you get too calm? Well, you just kind of fade away and die. So you've got to have this balance. And each of them are balanced differently, which frequency and amount is different. And I'm looking, I think my video just restarted. Hopefully not. If it did, I'll have to reshoot this whole darn thing again. But, okay. So that is our chakra work, and we're going to slow down because I think my video did click over. So, that's the chakras. And we go ahead and pause this video. Oh my God, just been talking about 30 minutes with just chakra work. So that's pause. We'll save that and add that to the video later on. So, I guess we're at the end of our video. And we'll certainly, if you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. If you have any interesting comments about chakra work that you've done or whatever, please comment below. If you want to join, you know, my channel to get more of these type of weird spiritual things, as well as a little tarot reading, you know, subscribe. I do tarot reading. It's not a full-on whatever. I just do a quick one. A lot of times a short or a quick, you know, 10-minute one. You know, just subscribe. You'll get them all the time. Look at the readings thing. That's where all my old tarot readings are. Some of them are date specific, and most of them are not. So, I love you all. Thank you very much. I get the little heart there for watching my channel. You know, thank you for seeing my very first video ever. And I will see you all in my next upcoming video. Bye.